Afternoon, dears. Welcome to you. I'm Caroline Branham, a chambermaid to the Washingtons. It's a pleasure to make y'all's acquaintance. Master Washington, he set me out here this day. He told me, Caroline, go out of doors now, bid greetings to my guests. Be of assistance, hands, and curiosities and queries and such. So that's what I'm doing. I'm a chambermaid. Normally, I'm inside of the house, tending to the needs of the family, the visitors and the guests like yourselves. Yes, more specifically, I belong to the Custis family. I'm what you call a dower slave and such, meaning that I'm property of the Custis estate. Mrs. Washington, she was married before and such, so she she received us after the death of her first husband. Forgive me, I'm doing all this rambling and such. Um, is there any curiosities or queries that y'all might like to ask? Do tell me where you're visiting from. Are you visiting from nearby, one of the neighboring farms and such? Are you part of the Fairfax community? I, I just need to know these things. Just need to know so much. But I'm here. I'm always here. I start my days right early, right early. I do. Round and about 4 o'clock, I rise. Round about time that the cock's outside my window get to crowing. They some noisy creatures, chickens is. But they tasty, so that's good. Yeah. I in inside the house by way of the kitchen. I bid greetings to Lucy and Nathan. They's our cooks now, ever since Hercules up and run off. But that's another story for another time. Yes, I fetch heated water from them and I take it straightway upstairs to the bedchamber of Master and Mistress Washington. And there inside I light the fires in the fireplace. I do that at 5 o'clock. Master Washington likes to rise at 5 o'clock. He is quite timely altogether. He's often said that a man should be to work well before the time the sun has warmed the earth. Mm. I then assist Mistress Washington with her dressing and grooming needs for the day. I, I clean and empty out the chamber pots. Always mindful, of course, to leave a touch of clean water in them afterwards. It helps to stave off odor. Trust me, it really does help. I make the beds and change the linens. And then I go throughout the rest of the household, sweeping, polishing, mopping, dusting, whatever needs to be done. At 7 o'clock, we do have our breaking of the fast, and Master Washington is right anxious to enjoy himself some mush cakes. Except when he don't call them mush cakes no more, he calls them hoe cakes. And he eats his all fancy like with honey and butter, swimming in honey and butter. And most days I'm about that house from garret to cellar, it seems, turning mattresses and cleaning out the fireplaces and oh, cleaning out whatever it is that needs to be cleaned out. Most days, I'm finally dismissed from the household round and about 9 o'clock, only to start my day all over again. Only to start my day all over again. It seems as if it's never ended from the day before. And somewhere in there, I'm supposed to get my sewing done. I'm also considered as a seamstress. I'm responsible for sewing clothes for the slaves on this here farm. Um, I make for them 9 articles of clothing each and every week. And so they are ready for their rations of clothing. When it comes time to get our rations of clothing, we get a ration of clothing and such. A couple of garments of this particular sort and a couple of that particular sort to last us throughout the year. Oh, forgive me. I have been rambling on far too much. Again, are there any queries or curiosities that I could be of assistance with answering for you today? Oh, yes, Miss Yeomans. Let's see. What does motivate or empower me as an enslaved individual so that I can persevere through this reality of slavery? Well, I'd like to say faith. Faith in God that He's going to provide and do exactly as He says He's going to do. Love for my fellow mankind, even though they don't always consider me as mankind or human. And hope. Hope that tomorrow is going to be different than today is. If I don't have hope, at least, I don't think I'd be able to get up the next day, each and every day. Hopefully enough that's answer for your query. Thank you for asking. Oh, how do I do my laundry? Well, goodness, most times I take care of the linens for the household on Mondays. I go throughout the whole entirety of the household with the families and the guests that are there. And I take in the linens and whatever it is that needs to be taken in. Most times I take those things down to Dolce and Viney. These are washerwomen down in the wash house. But I've learned growing up how to tend to most of the garments. Old doll. Oh, she is so wise. She come up here with Mrs. Washington way back in 1759. She taught me, now Caroline, if you wish for your garments to stay bright white, you need to dry those things off in the sunlight. But if you wish for your colors ne'er to fade, dry those garments off in the shade. And she's taught me how to make a milk water wash for my red garments and such, and make sure that I have a good amount of mordant or salt to rinse my garments to make sure that things don't stain or the colors don't run. We use things like salt or lemon that provides a touch of acid to scrub out stains as well. Mm, we do laundry like I expect you would do your laundry. You do your laundry, don't you? However much it's somebody else's job and responsibility. I'm just supposed to see to the mending of these particular things as I fetch them from the visitors and the guests and the family members inside the household. But thank you for your query. Oh, my family? You actually want to know about my family? Well, I got me 6 living children, 4 girls and 2 boys. My boys are my oldest one and my youngest one. They are named Wilson and Peter. Peter's named after his father's likeness. My girls are right there in the middle. Wilson is 15 years of age. 15! My goodness gracious, he has grown into such a man. Master Washington gave him his work assignment just recently. You see, children around here, they get their formal work assignment from Master Washington anywhere as young as 10 years of age, but most no later than 14 years of age. It's at the age of 15 or 16, I do believe, that Master Washington is responsible for paying tithes or taxes upon us as property and such. And my boy Wilson, he was assigned as a footman, so he has himself a nice fancy livery of white and red. Master Washington likes for his male servants to wear their livery and the color of the coat of arms. A livery is like fashioned after a three-piece suit, slightly military aspects as well. Oh, you should seen him as of late. He struts about, struts about, struts about. He says to me the other day, "Mama, Mama, Mama, call me by my name." I says, "You Wilson, my boy Wilson." He says, "No, Mama, call me by my name, my title, what I do for Master Washington." I says, "Very well," wishing to encourage him. I says, "You are Wilson the footman." He says, "No, Mama, no." I said, "What you mean, no, Mama, no?" He says, "Mama, Mama, call me by my my fancy French name." I said, "What's that?" He says, "Mama, I am a postilion." Huh, postilion my posterior. Child, I'll call you as I see fit to call you. I gave you your name in the first place, I says to him. He likes to think a touch much more of himself just because he has fancy garments to wear. Mm, it matters not what garment you wear if you're still considered as somebody's property. My girls, my oldest of which is Rachel. She's soon to be 12 years of age. She's the oldest of the girls. And then I have Jemima. She's named after my mama, dear child. Leanthe, she's 8 years of age. And then Polly, she's 5. And the older children looking after the younger children when I'm away at work. But thank you for asking your query. And of course, I'm married to my beloved Peter Hardeman. Peter Hardeman. He's a groomsman and a breeder for Master Washington. He came up here with the purchase of a horse some years back. Even though it's not legally recognized as being husband and wife, I still like to call him my beloved, my Peter Hardeman. But that's all I have to tell you about my beautiful family. But thank you for asking. It means right much to me. Oh, the clothes that I have upon. Well, because I work inside the mansion house, I'm required to wear garments that are of lesser quality in fabric and such, or the Washingtons of the household, but still in all pleasant and pleasing to the eyesight of the visitors and the guests. And just like my son, Wilson, and the rest of the footmen and the butlers and the man servants and such are required to wear certain garments and such to where we are seen in a particular light. And the clothes that I have upon myself and that I'm required to wear in accordance to the customs and the laws of this particular time, sumptuary laws, say that an enslaved person is supposed to wear garments of calico and check and stripes and things of that particular nature. Very often time our garments are made out of hemp or linen, things that are coarse and uncomfortable. Only reason I'm wearing a printed dress is because I work inside the house. Those whom I make garments for that work out in the fields and other places, the garments are quite plain, very uncomfortable. And it's very easy to identify their status and such in this society or this world. Thank you for asking that question, Miss Donna. Oh, goodness gracious. What is a typical day like? A typical day is right long, right long. It seems that Master Washington is very intent on making sure that everybody's to labor. Everybody. He's for every male and female slave to do as much labor in 24 hours as their bodies, without affect their health, the Constitution would allow of. Sometimes this makes me think that I'm supposed to work and work and work until I feel like I'm going to die. And if I don't die, then keep working. Yes, it's always something for me to be doing. We very oftentimes have more than one assignment. And as I said, my primary responsibility is to chambermaid, to sweep and polish and mop and dust and see to the needs of the family and the visitors' guests and such inside of the mansion household. On times when I have a moment, I'm required to do sewing and things of that particular nature. My days can be anywhere as long as 12 to 15 hours. Oh, and the holiday seasons, oh, the most dreaded. I understand me. I understand that it is a time for visitors and guests and family to gather themselves together and to be with one another and such. But that requires for my day to be even longer. Even though those that work out in the fields and the skilled laborers and such are working from sun to sun, my days, my work days can extend far beyond that. Just as theirs can go in comparison to the season. But my season, the holiday seasons, are never ending, as it seems to where there is much revelry and entertainment and such well throughout the night time. Thank you again for asking that query. Hopefully, that's answer enough for you. Uh, Is there anything else that I could be of assistance with, dears? Oh, and Miss Kimberly Stern wants to know, where did I grow up? What was it like when I was growing up? Oh, well, I was born right here. But my mama, she come up here from New Kent County down there near Williamsburg. See, she was dowry property of Mrs. Washington. Mrs. Washington being a Custis before her first husband, Daniel Park Custis, very wealthy planter, very wealthy. I mean, Master Washington is moderately wealthy with 8,000 acres, but her first husband, quite wealthy. Sadly enough, in the 8 years that they were married, her life was not all fanciful as you might think. And that two of the four children that she'd given birth to did succumb to illness and died in their infancy. And no sooner than she was grieving the loss of her second daughter and such child, that her husband unexpectedly died. And so Mrs. Washington was responsible for holding trust to all of the property, slaves, land, whatever holdings there were, and to pass them on into the children from that marriage. And so my mama came up here. I was born here. This is the only home I've ever known, right here. And so mm, life is very much like it is now, into where I've always known work. And I've known times of sorrow, and times of love, and times of loss. Same as anybody else, I expect. But thank you for asking, Miss Kimberly. Let's see. Miss Emily Wozniak, she wants to know whether or not I interact with any other enslaved people from other homes and such. Of course, I got myself a community. We's all family around here, even though if not by blood, we's all family. And there are some cabins that do contain more than one family. In those small cabins, we live here on the property is set aside behind gates and behind fences and such is our living spaces. And then there are others that stay in the slave quarters. But before then, we used to all stay together in a house for families. It was a large 2-story wooden structure, and everybody was there. It was like grandmas and cousins and aunts and nieces and nephews. Never any privacy and always quite noisy and smelly. But we loved it because we was all together. So I know most everybody here on this particular mansion house farm. The outer farms, I only have occasion to have acquaintance with those that work here, but their families on the other farms and such. So I know of them by conversation. But thank you for asking that query. Oh goodness gracious! I expect I can probably speak upon this as the Washingtons are nowhere nearby. They get so upset when you talk about this particular subject. Miss Brenda Turner wants to know if I've heard anything from Ona since she up and left a couple of years back. And and what do I feel or think about Master Washington pursuing her? Well, no, I haven't heard any news of her. And very oftentimes, though, if a guest does mention her name, I will ask them if they have any knowledge of her well being or whereabouts. Her mother, well, her sister now, as her mother has passed, greatly missed her. That was before she was sent in her place to go and to become property of Miss Eliza. And Master Washington, in his attempts to retrieve the property of his wife, I thought that it was gone about in a very peculiar manner, and that in private conversation, I've heard him say so much as to where he wishes for this institution to be abolished or to go away, but yet and still he's trying to pursue the property of his wife. I suspect it might have something to do with the simple fact that being that he is responsible for repayment of any property that is lost or damaged. Um, those are my thoughts and such for the most part. But if you truly want to know how I feel about it, I am very, very happy that she was brave enough to pursue her chance at liberty, her own freedom. Thank you for being brave enough to ask that query, Miss Brenda Turner. Are there any other curiosities? The query is, does Brenda sing? Hello, everybody. We're going to take that moment in this particular question to go ahead and answer it as my person, as myself. My name is Brenda Parker, and I'm a historical character interpreter here at Mount Vernon, and I'm really enjoying this opportunity. And I will be answering questions both as far as Caroline is concerned and as myself. But this particular query came from Debbie, and she wanted to know whether or not I also sing. Yes, I do also sing. I have that particular talent. As you might be able to see in the far background, there's these beautiful little African symbols back there. Matamasi and my beautiful Sankofa bird. I do program, a special program here on occasion called Matamasi, and it's music, messages, and memories. So it's a lot of songs that were written down and documented after, let me see, after the Civil War, as far as most of them go. Some of them have, of course, their ties to slavery and that time period. But if you see me singing here on the property, I'm more than likely either in that particular program or either I'm giving a song tribute down at our cemetery, the cemetery for the enslaved and other African Americans that were here, lived and worked here on the property. So thank you for asking that question, Debbie, and giving me a chance to step out of character altogether and everything. So the next question. May I have any other questions? What is my process for giving voice to enslaved people? Thank you for asking that particular question. We have been blessed to have Teaching Tuesdays where Sadie Troy comes on, and she was speaking the other day about source documents, primary source documents, and secondary source documents. And we are so privileged here at Mount Vernon to have all of these letters and papers of General Washington, and him being a very meticulous and detailed note maker. Um, you can go into the inventory list and see a name, and you can actually take that name and read it a little bit further on and see this is their work position, this is their approximate age. You can look in daily or weekly journals and see that the person was distributed this amount of clothing or this person was ill that particular day. So what I do is I take the name of a person. I try to find them in the sources that we have, as to whether or not they were born here, or whether or not they were brought here. With Caroline Branham, I did not, we still don't know whether or not she was born here. I like to choose to say that she was born here in order to extend the narrative and talk about the fact that a large amount of the population initially came as part of Mrs. Washington's dower property and estate. And that way I could talk about people from different places other than just here at Mount Vernon. And it might be something as simple as, also, if you wanted to create this kind of persona or a life for somebody on your own, it might be as simple as you saying, where did this teacup that I have come from? So you can take the object and you can backtrack and say, this was made here, this was purchased here, and this is the person that was using it. In addition to, this is the person that was using it, who was a person that was making the product that you're eating out of, or that that you're actually enjoying, the cup of tea. So you can go to the hands of the people that were actually making the food, or actually handling that particular teacup, cleaning that particular teacup and that set, and responsible for presenting it or putting it out. And it gives you wonderful opportunities if you just take a simple object and then expand or go outward, as to all the hands and all the people that might have handled it during that particular time. Next question. Thank you, Mr. Ray, for asking that. How do you get your start as an interpreter at Mount Vernon? Was it love of history or acting or teaching? And that led me here. Thank you for asking that, Miss Millie. Um, it's a very odd process how I ended up here at Mount Vernon as a historic character interpreter. I actually started working at Mount Vernon for the Mount Vernon Ladies Association about 11, 12 years ago, now back in 2004, as a waiter, as a server down in the Mount Vernon Inn. But I've had a background. I've earned my living for several years by doing musical theater, more specifically children's theater. So lots and lots and lots of children's theater, main stage productions, touring theater, commercials, television, and things of that particular nature. I would not have considered myself a historian or a history buff until I came up onto the property and I came to realize that um, these persons, their lives weren't scripted. So we have to create their lives with the evidence that they've left behind in artifacts or in documentation, paper documentation, and other sources and things of that particular nature. As a mother of four children who are all adults now, yay! Um, I was always a teacher. I think that any parent is a teacher for the most part. And so I really enjoyed being able to bring a story, just a simple storybook to life. I was that kind of parent that did all of the voices, would even encourage my children to dress up or to act out particular parts or play with their little dolls as the different characters. But thank you for asking that question. Yeah, it was kind of fate or providence, as the Washingtons might say, divine providence, that I ended up in this position. When I was offered the opportunity, I turned it down a couple of years in a row. And then I decided the third time that it was presented with me that this might be something that I would be interested in doing. And I'm so happy that I decided to go ahead and take that opportunity. Thank you again for asking that question. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you? Oh, all righty. I think we're probably getting down to the last few minutes. Peter Hardiman is a distant relative. How can I find out more about the enslaved community at Mount Vernon? That's from Marvin Alonzo Greer. I am so excited that you decided to chime in on this particular topic and conversation today. You are always welcome to go and look at the resources that we have available here. We will make sure that we put in the links below at the end of or the close a couple of the resources that I have, short of actually going and looking at a lot of the documents and everything. I know that Peter Hardiman was a part of the Stewart family and that he did come initially with the purchase of a horse. He was a jockey. I didn't realize he was very slender and short in stature. And one particular account, I think he was loaned out for somebody to use him to win a race. Yay, he won. And oftentimes, when that happened, they would be given a little gratuity or a little monetary tip to bring back home. So, hopefully you'll be able to find out more information. If not, just continue to hit up the resources online. Go to the website and under the Lives Bound Together exhibit or George Washington slash slavery, you can actually find as much of the digitized information that we have about the individual persons. If not, get in contact with me a little bit later, Marvin. And another question, really quick. Is there a place on Mount Vernon that has a special meaning to you? This is asked by Amanda Williams. Yes, my favorite place, or the place that I find the most amount of meaning or connection, would actually be the cemetery for the enslaved people. It is located down near the water's edge. It is about 200 yards away from General Washington's new tomb, and it's on the opposite side of the path. And it is situated on a hillside, so to speak, and it used to overlook what was called the hole or the swamps, and that was, of course, drained once the Mount Vernon Ladies Association got the property and everything like that. But I can sit there and just enjoy the peace and the calm that place it presents and that it offers. And that's normally, if you come across me singing, that would be the place, or a very good place for me to actually be singing or lifting up um, a praise and song. But yeah, that's my favorite place on the whole entirety of the estate. And thank you so much for asking that question, Amanda. I believe we have to wrap up now. I thank you so very much for your time and your energy and your attention. Keep on putting questions in, and I'll try to answer them a little bit later and everything. We're also going to list links to the resources that I mentioned before, the collaborative companion book for the Lives Bound Together exhibit, as well as Buried Lives, written by Carla McClafferty, a wonderful friend of mine, as well as the Enslaved People of Mount Vernon, a wonderful book that's written by Mary V. Thompson. Thank you again, and it's been wonderful seeing you all.